Peace, family. My name is Aubrey Muhammad. I hope that everyone is well. We'd like to thank you for joining us for week 4 for my Facebook Live update of my campaign for mayor of the village of Hempstead. Now, this week we'll be covering policing in the community. And if you have any questions, please feel free to chime in at any time, or if there are audio or video glitches or anything, please let me know. Now, as we start, I would like to go on the premise of policing in the community, and that's mainly, of law enforcement. And that's why do we have laws, as you know, because that's to regulate us. Because if we can't get along with each other in an instance, so law is there for us to be brought to a court and before a judge, the way a judge will decide what is justice for us in the community. And the purpose of law enforcement is mainly to ensure that we are brought before law to resolve this dispute. Now, dealing with Hempstead, it's a mainly black community, 48%, and indigenous Latino, 44%, and 6% Caucasian. They're also undocumented residents in Hempstead. So the relationship mainly in regards to the historic relationship of policing amongst the indigenous community and the black community are unique, and it's not a good one. Mainly it's Caucasians coming over to America. They were invaders here, invaders and conquerors, and literally committed genocide against the indigenous population here and taken land. We know that as conquerors, and that have never been atoned for. And also the black community and black and indigenous people actually had a relationship before the Caucasians, with Caucasians literally have obliterated from history, the history books. They've hidden that history. Go look at the Olmecs down in Mexico. Those were the pyramid builders. These were black people going back and forth. They were, and the indigenous population here was mainly from India, going across the Bering Strait. They were also Mongols and also blacks from around the world, original people. So that was hidden from us, and it wasn't, it was a very complementary and productive relationship of trade and exchange of cultures, ideas, and civilization building. And European conquest over here is entirely different. A whole different relationship developed. Now, if you have any questions, please feel free to chime in with us. Now, in regards to black people, what was our relationship with law? That first, the origin of law enforcement with black people was our unlawful being captive here, being held captive in the West during chattel slavery. And that, what was that? The overseers. It was a terroristic relationship. They literally terrorized us into subjugation. That was for hundreds of years, chattel slavery. Now, that was the overseers. Then that later became slave catchers and bounty hunters, catching runaway slaves to take us back to plantations. And later, after we left the plantations, we built 50 independent black towns around this country, separating from Caucasians, who we know were not our brothers, didn't bring us here to be brothers. They brought us here to be servants, and robbed us of the knowledge of self and our culture and history. And in those black towns, they were terroristically raised. They destroyed them. They didn't want us. We were prosperous. And when we were in those all black towns, there were no high levels of crime. There was prosperity. There was cooperation. It was growth. And our oppressors immediately saw they had to recapture us. So that was a second form of slavery. They formed the Ku Klux Klan to raise those, and that was a pogrom. That was a government pogrom designed to get us back into sharecropping. And after sharecropping, World War II, the economy boomed. We migrated up into the cities and then later on to the suburbs. And that's how we came into Hempstead. And the surrounding areas, we have a large presence here. So now, in regards to community policing, most of the police historically have been Caucasian, and it haven't been a good relationship. It's been an extension of that overseeing and the terroristic one because you never atoned for it. Caucasians have never addressed it to say, look, we were wrong. What is in our nature that caused us to dehumanize you like that, to have no empathy for your suffering? What is it that we did? And they never atoned for it because it was never addressed. And we were just happy to be productive. We were happy to get away. We never had revenge, but we went and formed an army, militias to go after. Matter of fact, they disarmed us. That's one of the initial reasons, the initial aim of the NRA is to disarm black people. Because we were a threat then, because we were unified, we were organized, and we had a sense of unity and oneness. And they disarmed us. Now, coming into the black communities in the suburbs of Long Island and Hempstead, it was predominantly Caucasian. And now I speak of that because this leads up to the current level of distrust. There's a high level of distrust. Let me see if there are any questions here. Educate my brother. So many of our youth know nothing of history. Pam, yes, ma'am. I will. Yes, ma'am. I have to educate. Thank you, Pam, for your comment. Yes, now the distrust, because now, let me go back to the 70s, mainly these Caucasian police in the black community, that rogueness, that brutality, a lot of that was from, if a cop did do that to us, I'm speaking of Long Island now, and Hempstead, in the area, Hempstead, it was because that cop had some street in them. You know, it was because he had that street and that brutality. Okay, that was explainable. But now, the levels of distrust, because they have been militarized. Now they got police. I mean, you just have this comply or die, this do as I say, this arrogance, you know, it's just this militarization. They literally are dressed up like soldiers. Who do you militarize against? Your enemy. Your enemy. When you see a civilization that sees its own citizens as enemies, that's when it's close to the end. That's when it's at the end. When you have to turn on your own citizens with that much hate and shielding and that much fear, you know, this militarization that's coupled with fear of genetic annihilation that Caucasians suffer from, that Chronos complex, that's what got them all scared. You're dealing with people won't listen to you, pow, they're killing a unarmed black man. That's going all around the country. That's happening all around the country. No accident. It's all happening at the same time. The military pulled out of the Cold War. They sent them agents into the black community, starting trouble. Yes, it's true. That extra military surplus is in our communities. It's on standby for us. They have this militancy against our own citizens. And this is measures we have to deal with. And as black people, we have to handle this. And basically, with this militarization, we have to go into pooling our own resources and pooling our own ability to police our own communities. I mean, currently with the distrust, you have the snitching, the see something, say something. We don't cooperate with that. I mean, it's sad to see that. That reminds me of Nancy Reagan's ad back in the 80s that said, say no to drugs. You know, when it was a CIA that literally oversaw the infiltration of our community with drugs. They were putting drugs in our community. They always have been putting the worst in our community to bring the worst out of us. America never brought the best out of black people. They stole our inventions and patents, but they never looked for us as brothers to say, look, we would do this for you. They always see us as competitors, and they always will, as long as you have Caucasians in power like that. Now, when we're dealing with that militarization and that distrust, now you got the, snitch on your neighbors. And some people are doing that for economic gain or personality clash or conflict. They just dislike a person. And I'm going to deal with that later about that dislike we have and how it's need to be redistributed. So they have to see something, say something. We don't cooperate with this. Very few do. You don't see the community encouraging this. Why? Because we know it's hypocritical. They're hypocrites. If we see something, say something, we see some police brutality, we get a blue wall of silence. So that's the relationship, and we need to change in how we rely on others. We must rely on ourselves because we trust you. We trust you. This is how come our misleaders can mislead us. They're not leaders, they're misleaders. And the people in our community are really doing things backwards towards us because of a relationship of that outside occupying force. It's more like a colony where we don't own things in the community that we can call our own. We don't protect it. That's why when an outrage happens and we start so-called rioting, but we really rebellion, we burn down the area because we know we don't own it. We have a good sense of that. We never did that to our own, those all black towns. We didn't damage those towns. That was Caucasians that raised those towns. They burned down the towns because it was prosperous and we were unified. Right now, if we went to our black youth who are being fed guns, it's gun manufacturers and the police and politicians, excuse me, one second. Police and politicians never condemn these drug importers. Why? Because the CIA is overseeing it. And these gun manufacturers putting all these guns in the community of our undisciplined youth who have them. If we start taking those youth, we started training them, disciplining them, motivating them, taking them out to shooting ranges, and started putting enemies on the targets, guns would stop. Guns and ammunition will be cut off from the black community tomorrow. Why? Because we have a purpose. Because that's the relationship we have in this country. So they literally give us things we know we're destroying ourselves with because we feel empowered. Why? Because we're being misled. We're being misleaded. They lied to us about integration. We would integrate. They know they've been segregating us. They know that segregate doesn't mean power. To separate means power of yourself. To segregate means they just distance you apart, but keeping you within hand's range. Arms reach distance. It's like emancipation. It's not freedom. That means you're still mine, but here you do a little something. So this has been the relationship, and the reference I'm making of the CIA putting drugs in our community. It's a good movie you should see called Kill the Messenger about journalist Gary Webb. He covered that fully, and I'll put that in the link in the notes. If you have any questions about my sources, I have a few notes I'll be putting down in the comments section after I finish this broadcast. And if there's any questions, feel free to chime in to let me know what's up, because it's us that's got to police the community. And because look at other communities. Now I'm going to do a stark contrast here, but there's a difference in how they go in Italian communities, predominantly Italian communities, Greek communities. It's just a whole different level of respect for them. Some police come from those communities. I mean, they just respect them, man. You know, in our communities, there's this us against them. And me and my nephew, it was about probably almost 10 years ago, driving to go do some work in Brooklyn. We were going down Ocean Parkway. It's in my sports car, and all of a sudden, I'm thinking Mayor Bloomberg's police detail with him and is driving through, commandeering the parkway. So they came through in these black SUVs and these other black cars with the sirens that look like Secret Service. SUVs, and they're pulling up to an intersection. It's an accident up ahead of us a couple of blocks. So they zoom by. We let them by. And I'm thinking it's a police detail of the mayor because it looked like his detail. We got to that intersection. It was a fender bender. This was in Ocean Parkway in Brooklyn. It was a fender bender. I kid you not, in the intersection. These were members of the Jewish community who were coming out to deal with a fender bender on Ocean Parkway. They shut off traffic both ways. There's two main streets there and it's the two service roads. They rerouted us to the service roads. So we followed it, and I got a closer look and saw literally a fender bender. Everybody okay. And they did this in their community. And as we went to being rerouted down this service road, I kid you not, NYPD patrol car was pulling up. And they didn't come into the scene. They stopped at that corner and oversaw what the Jewish members of this community were doing. They were drinking their coffee, sitting down, just relaxing, watching these people cover down on their community. That same area, back in the 80s, these members of the community overran a police precinct that had arrested one of their members. Overran twice, I believe it was. That's how police relate to other communities in regards to us. You couldn't even imagine that right now. Some of us couldn't even imagine that happening in our community. Raiding a police precinct, sending a message that this and that. We did that in the 70s up in Harlem, the Nation of Islam. Minister Farrakhan had ordered all the white police out of Harlem after they raided the mosque. And that was our power. And that, so community does have power. But I'm talking about that community as they patrol their community. Now, that relationship was because they respected them. They were in unity. They had a common cause. Us back in the 70s, we literally controlled our communities. The Nation of Islam, we were doing security in the projects all around the country. NOI security. Peter King's, no good behind, was spearheaded a campaign to remove us from the projects. We had stopped drugs from being sold. We stopped a lot of violence, a lot of murders. Now, for the most part, it was redistributed to other areas, but we had some effect. We changed lives where we go. Why? It's an organized effort, and it's a good spirit that we have behind it because we love our people. We aren't going with guns. We didn't have guns going after them, and that's how we shouldn't be in our community. We have to go with a true love for seeing our community secure. Now, speaking of the black community now, because this is the most conflict between law enforcement and the black communities, where the most conflict occurs. And this is why, because there's these people, they're literally overseers, and they have this outside occupying force mentality, and now it's been just amplified with the militarization. They got them jackbooted, all jacked up, and we still have not unified in response to that. Now, excuse me. If there's any questions, please feel free to chime in. Good evening. If you lose, we'll still support our youth. That's right. Okay, I see you, Limehouse Street. That's just what I'm talking about. Us, the love for us, and I'm answering Cheryl. She's saying, good evening. If you lose, we'll still support. That's right. We've always supported youth. I've been going in the community 20 years, door to door, knocking on the doors of our people, and sitting in the homes and counseling our youth and binding our families. That's the most potent power in our community, a family that is binded together, strong. People don't want to mess with that. People respect that. And the only thing that can do that is love. Nothing. No, there's no law to regulate that. There's no jurisprudence that could evoke that. That's pure spiritual love and concern and intent. As long as our intent is right, we will get our youth, because they have been deprived of resources. So they're going out making their own rules. A lot of brothers and sisters, especially young, that's in the so-called gangs, they're youth organizations. They're in there because they're getting shown love. Why are they in so-called gangs? Because we have been abandoned. I was one of them youth in the 80s, grew up in the street of Hempstead from 79 to 86. I was a nuisance in the community. I was getting into all types of so-called trouble. It's basically from not having guidance from a father figure. We had very few. There were very few father figures for us in the community. Most of the ones we admired and looked up to were doing illicit activity, so-called illegal activity. Now look at the law. The law isn't sided for us, you know. The law, basically, always make it's literally almost illegal to be black if you look at the nature of things in the country. We are communal people by nature. When you come from Africa, we weren't individualistic. We weren't selfish. We suffer a high degree of selfishness. We were more communal. That the more civilizations in society and neighborhoods were more spread out. So we had more things exposed. Everything was more open book. It was very more transparent. So that's our nature of extended family. That's a given. Now, but we're dealing with the laws and the lifestyle and the ways of a Caucasian, a European. He's from the cave. He got fear. It's a short, cold world to him. That's that fear. That's where the Chronos complex comes from. It doesn't relate to nature and stuff. That's why he destroys it. You know that he have extinct species and have extinct all. When he came out the cave, he extinct the wolf up in Europe, the big cats. And the original black people that were there, he's the only person that did that. So you're dealing with a man with a mind that's from a cave. than me. Look at Donald Trump. He exemplifies that. Donald Trump, look at building a wall. They building walls up in Europe. The big castles in the city, the fortresses. That's from Europe. Well, we had fortresses in Africa. And in Egypt, you have that conquering going out of imperialism, but you don't have that big city-like structure, that wall, that xenophobia, that fear of strangers. It's two different mindsets, you know? So Caucasians are in power here. And us, we have semi-power, but it's misplaced. It's mispower. It is emulated power. It's not true power. True power is doing for yourself. Just like I showed you the example of that Jewish community, which are some of the most influential people in this nation. And we have to pool our resources and look out for our own, and what in this harsh condition which we have been individualized, which goes against our nature, doing for self. We have psychological problems from that. Things aren't working out for us because we're communal by nature. We're supposed to have more. The Native Americans like that too. You know, they didn't possess the land. I didn't mean to go off into this, but this is dealing with the nature, and this is true. And the nature of peoples, you have to deal with a community that and reflect policies for the people who reside in there. And Native American didn't possess things, and he saw it all as connected. And the community was very communal. Native American tradition, you didn't knock on a neighbor's door without a gift. It was an insult to stop by a neighbor's house without a gift. In our African heritage, we were very communal and very giving. No one went without. You didn't have homelessness, old folks. Did you know old folks' homes and orphanages didn't exist in Africa? The black world. That's Europeans. That's come from abandoning your family. And sexism. That was because the woman was a burden up in Europe, at cave life. They were nomads. They were walking around. The woman wasn't a warrior. She wasn't a warrior. She wasn't valuable. She was a burden to carry around when she was pregnant. And they were nomadic, going from place to place, conquering, burning, and raising, scorched earth. That comes from Europe. And that mind is present here. Just look at the projects. Look at things they built for us. Look what we built for ourselves. Those all black towns. We didn't start trying to build cities. We built more spread out towns. That's our nature of communalism. That's doing things together. It's a more socialism. That's naturally what we do. So we have to, and now we have been westernized. We've been Caucasoided. That's an original people, black people, the original people of planet Earth. All people come from black people. So you're going to have, black people can't relate to everyone, really. That's why we feel very betrayed. Especially so-called dark-skinned black people feel very betrayed. How the whole world almost find contempt in black. Especially if you so-called the darkest of black. The whole world comes from that, but now in trying to get acceptance and white supremacy will have that scapegoat of black is bad and not as good, and I'm lucky I'm so more closer to you because you're pale skin and that you're white and that I can be with you, I'll get favors with you, closeness to you. Go look at the social patterns, what they call social climbing in America. They ain't people aren't trying to move into our communities, it's these other communities. And people ambitious like that, well, that's human nature that you would be ambitious like that, trying to social climb, to get acceptance amongst them. But it's not a good policy. It's not a good, with us, we're more communal, we are more communal, and we have to reach out towards each other to resolve and cover down on our communities. We've done it before, we'll do it again. But the enemy he's slick. This, it's diabolical. Integration was a trick. Right now, integration was to make us think that Caucasian people nature, they change their nature. Law cannot change a people's nature. You cannot legislate people's nature. You have to deal with the truth of how things are and relate to people. We got to start pooling our resources, teaming up. We have to go after our youth. They're in them gangs, so-called gangs, excuse me. They're in, oh yeah, I see your comment, my brother Mark. He said, talk about it. That's right. You know, because we're experiencing it. And we have to bring it to a halt. They're in the so-called gangs because the brothers are showing love. The brothers around me, I remember one or two people tried to give me a message. It was the elders, one or two. I could probably remember 3, but I remember so many more of the elders who were selling weed, who were stealing, who was doing so much. They were much more influential. They were much more accepted. Why? They were going into our nature. Why did we drop out of school like that? Why did we hit the street? Why did we go with the brothers who were giving us the free will? We felt free. We felt empowered. And in those so-called gangs, they're getting love. It's a method to their madness, but our pursuit of that individualism of getting a career, a so-called career, have us neglecting and abandoning our youth. So quite naturally, and I'm going to say this because I witnessed this myself. I saw the trend, and it's so true. The enemy set up the Bloods and the Crips. And initially, these are our brothers, but that gang, that division, they always foment division and seed it. They seed it. The Bloods and the Crips started in the West Coast. And if you notice, over the last couple of decades, as they expanded, each city that one of the Blood of the Crips would arrive in, they would arrive at another city at the same time. That's not an accident. Expanding across the country, each so-called gang with one outnumbering the other. They always had, I forgot which one, I believe it's the Bloods. They have the ritual, they have more of a manual, and the ritual is hard to get into, that man, discipline and manuals and stuff. So your number's gonna be lower. But if anybody can join something by doing some sort of initiation, a simple one, you're gonna go for the simpler one. So you outnumber another, so you'll always defeat them. Each city across America, after the 70s, after they formed in the 70s, and they started coming across the country, each city saw the emergence of these two youth organizations, Bloods and Crips, at the same exact moment. That's not a coincidence. And in New York, they appear at the same time in the 80s. So the enemy is always behind that. So we have to go to them. We have to sacrifice. You got to sacrifice your career. You got to sacrifice partying. The hell are you partying for? We haven't celebrated. We have no victory. We literally have failed. Most of that celebration is pain relief anyway. We're relieving stress and pain of being communal nature people in an individualistic society, where lust and greed and fear rule the day. But you can't do that. That ain't us. It'll come out of us. We'll do it. You see some of us, like, that original people can emulate all people very instantly like that. Original people can do that. But it's very hard for Caucasian to emulate other people. And we will adapt like that, but it's so stressful on us. You're always conscious, you're always worried about, does this one accept me? Why did he do that to me? Is it because I'm black? Or this and that. It's always on your mind. So that's stressful. So that's why we go out partying, we do drugs and stuff. It's a social and a mental painkiller. It's no accident that these drugs, especially weed, was put in our community with THC. It mellows out your mind. Everything is all right. Don't worry about it. And cocaine makes you euphoric. I'm Superman. I can overcome this. This is nothing to me. And in fact, we know what it does. It actually compounds those problems. And now, when the high wears off, you have to face reality, and that's the conflict we have with each other. And we take it out on each other. We take our pain, and we don't redistribute towards the enemy. That's the source of the pain, because we can't really detect him as much. We know the deep undercurrent is there. But it's not a policy. There's no open policy. We have to discover this, and we find out later on what exactly went on. Well, I'll put the reference down here for Kill the Messenger. That's what happened in our communities. The CIA had our brother Rick Ross. Rick Ross has turned towards helping our community now. He's a good brother, but they used him to put drugs deep in our community, crack and cocaine. And they were overseeing it all and permitting it all. Then they later on decide to set him up and entrap him, get him out the way. They always have a person like that to bring someone else, to bring a fresh supply in, a new face that they can call a boogeyman and say, look, this is the one that's committing these crimes in the community. This is a bad one. And now you can heroize Caucasians who are invaders over here and conquerors and the murderers and terrorists over here initially. That's all the policy was, terrorism. That was the initial policy. But now they can be heroized, chasing people who are committing derivative crimes. These so-called crimes we're doing are derivative. They're not source. We aren't the source of them. Excuse me. So it is us. We got to go into the community, and I'm not asking us to literally break the law. To break the law that's against us, I'm asking us to defy the law and our godliness towards getting freedom, justice, and equality. We can do it, and we team up. That'll become set. When we team up, the law and legislation, that becomes secondary. We're doing so much activity, we focus. Then after we do all that work and accomplishment, then we can celebrate. Then we can do things, because then it'll be a victory. We need a victory march. We haven't done many victory marches in Black America. Now, any questions? I see a few comments. Brother said, peace. Peace to you, my brother. Arion, assalamu alaikum. Brother Aaron. In regards to policing, basically that's what I wanted to conclude with. I want to conclude with us relying on ourselves to police our communities. Now, in Hempstead, there haven't been any instances of police shooting unarmed black men. We do have some from the community who are police officers. A lot more have left. I've always known a lot of our people policing from the community in Hempstead, but we need more. And we need more of us doing self-policing in the community. Walking around now, but people are saying, oh, well, some of us aren't qualified. And it depends on the spirit you bring to what you do. You have to be strong. We can't be weak leadership. Oh, we got to meet these qualifications, or this law and that law. So when we team up to do things in unity, that unity defies everything. People respect that. And people will always use the laws against us. Too many laws are being used against us, restrictions and stuff. I mean, it's clear. And we have to raise this up as an issue. I remember starting your own business from the early Caucasians that came here. They blessed them with land, the Homestead Act. They didn't bless us. Early Caucasians who start their businesses, nothing is said about them. They start their own kitchen. Catering businesses and stuff. Many of them not unlicensed. Many of them become famous. Nobody says nothing. But with us, we get into that individual. When you adopt individualism, that turns into snitching. People are snitching to me already. Talking about, this person is doing dirt. This one is that. I know this about that. Trying to get me dirty and grimy and low down like a snake in the grass. That I would use that methodology to undermine somebody, another candidate's campaign during this time. That's not my spirit. My spirit is let's be a whistleblower. Let's bring the information before a public forum. Let the community hear the principle. Don't be so stuck on personalities. You need to get counseling as to why you don't like a certain person. Maybe it's something in yourself you don't like, you see projected in them. A lot of us need psychiatrists and mental we need auditing, psychiatry. We need doctors, because we have this projection of the pain in ourselves from the scars we've had in our lives, and we pass it around to others. We don't like this person, so this person did me an injustice, so I'm doing revenge, so I'm gonna give the lowdown on them. No, let's come before a public forum and bring the issue. Let's deal with the department. Let's deal with the principals. And then as a whistleblower, I defend you, I protect you, I stand by you. We can do that. And that way we can address the issue instead of getting into personality. We do that too much. That's us adopting individualism. It has failed us all the time. We will never be victorious like that, adopting another man's mentality and nature. Never. We do that to feel comfortable, to not be a threat to other people, mainly Caucasian people. We do that to feel we like to be non-threatening around them. We have to team up, pool our resources, and build for ourselves. We can't be concerned about others. That's the problem with our misleadership now. It's so concerned about others. When we police in our community walking around, we have to be unarmed. We have to walk around in groups to get to know our people. Stop introducing ourselves to our neighbors through conflict. Some of us, the first time we meet our neighbors is not knocking on the door, greeting, giving a name, giving a gift, saying hello or some food or something, or asking or being friendly. We banging on walls and ceilings and stomping on the floor in the next apartment, turn down the music and do this and yelling. I've knocked on thousands of doors in Hempstead over the last 20 years. Yes, it's true. So I see some of my neighbors now that I've knocked on their doors, chiming in, and sometimes it's, you know, a dog barking back there. Sometimes, you know, it's not a friendly greeting. We really need to turn towards each other. It's us who need to do that. We can't rely on others, because this disunity in our community, that's the real unity. Our families going to ourselves and not using the information we get about each other on each other in that dirty way. That gets you low and grimy. Minister Farrakhan said the politicians, they start throwing dirt at each other like little babies. They go into their diaper and pull out some crap and they smear it on the other candidate's face. Then the other one says, oh, I got you, I'll get you one better. They go and dig deeper into their pamper, pull out some more crap and smear it hard on the other one's face. That's what we look like, children and babies. We have got to take control of our communities. And the policing, we have to source it from within. We can do it. And in our unity, we will defy everything, beat the odds, and we'll be successful. We'll clean up our community. Don't you know our community will be so, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, if we beautify our community, white folks will want to live in amongst us, and it won't be with this gentrification plan they're imposing on us, this secret gentrification plan they're doing to the black communities across the country. It'll be us producing for ourselves. Others will not disrespect us. They have to deal with us on our terms. Now that's what I wanted to say. Now let me see if there's any questions. Okay. Everything looks good. So that's basically what I wanted to say, excuse me. So I wish you well, family. And if you have any questions for next week, I'll be posting next week's topic in the comment section, along with the links for the sources I quoted. And I wish everyone a well Sunday. You have a good evening. Many blessings to you. And support my campaign. Give a contribution. Help me out. I need a donation. You go to my website. I'll put the link down. Give an online donation or write a check to the P.O. box to help me out with the campaign, to get this message out so that we can be the change in the community. We've all been talking about it. We got to do it. It's the spirit that we possess, that we share amongst each other, and we bring that together in unity to change our communities. Peace and blessings, family. Have a good evening.